Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, no, we've been very lucky, and my people have really caught on, to
Yeah.
it. It's it's. I thought it would take longer to teach people. We some of my 80 and 90-year-olds, like it's a little intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it would take longer okay, wait. To teach people. And now I got to turn that off because we're live
Oh.
as well. That's so if you actually wanted to be throw yourself off, you could watch the live stream of you talking. It's really disturbing. It's like a house of mirrors. Hello,
Yeah.
Sue.
Hi.
Oh, there's Herky. Look at we got first timers here, Jason. I have to
Oh boy, I better behave myself.
I know they don't know what to expect of us. Yeah.
It worked.
I'm gonna go downstairs.
Well, my people are showing up, Jason. Oh, it's because they're well trained.
I guess, yeah.
Don't take it personally. You know what? It took me 2 weeks. I'll tell you that we saw an influx of people. I went from 5 people last week to 25 people yesterday in one of my classes.
Wow.
We went from 25 last week to 50 in another class. So every week you should expect to like double your numbers as they learn Zoom. And then once they learn Zoom, they'll all stop showing up eventually.
Yeah.
Also, the rabbi's giving demerits.
Good.
That's right. I'm taking attendance, Herky. Don't worry. I'm telling God who shows up. I really should make that like one of the participants. Like I have like God. I should use my phone and like click on. It would just say God. It would be like we wouldn't see them, but they would be there on the list.
I'm watching you. Yeah.
Rabbi Alex, I want you to see what I got today.
You went to Starbucks? What are you doing, young lady?
Drive through. It's made my day. I am the happiest.
I will not take that away from you. Right.
You have a TLC thing.
I will. Some people.
Well, you're coming in really.
I had PF changed, so I understand. Yeah, the carry the.
Can you hear?
Carry
Can you hear?
Here we
I think I gave you one.
Oh,
Are they fake books behind you?
Jason? I do miss your cookies.
I know I couldn't figure out how to virtually do the coffee cookies fruit setup. I'm sorry, everyone. We've let you down.
Now that you mentioned, I do want my coffee, so I'm going to make myself.
now who is the is
That's right. Those cookies were great.
Jason Fryer? Who are you? What congregation are you from? What's your?
You're going to have to introduce yourself again.
Yeah, it's maybe we'll wait a couple seconds till everybody hops on.
Okay.
I'm one of the pastors at Westminster Presbyterian Church.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
Don't you remember the cookies, Joni?
What her?
The cookies at Westminster.
The cookies?
Yeah.
What cookies?
Well, you know what?
Best cookies ever.
When we were there for that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we were there for something. Yeah.
Oh, Bill and Jean.
So I have a
Okay,
question.
they're gone.
I have a question. It says live on YouTube recording.
Yes. So what's going on right now is for people who don't know how to sign on to Zoom, you can actually watch it on our website.
Oh, that's what that means. I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Is this
Okay.
being saved on YouTube?
So yes, you could watch this on not on our website, which is we use YouTube as our service. So you could watch this again. Like Torah Yoga, we're trying to figure out how to put that on. So if you wanted to watch it.
So this isn't something that, for example, you could just go to YouTube and get. You have to go through the congregation, or just curious.
I don't know exactly how you get stuff off of YouTube. I'm not that good. I just know how to go through my website. So it's possible you could find it, but I don't know how. I would say just go on our website and you can find your way in. But
Glenn?
okay.
Looking at the Jewish-Christian dialogue.
Oh wait, I'm gonna here. You know what, Jason? We're gonna mute everyone just before.
Yeah,
they say
mute us.
something.
Mute us.
Here we go.
I think that's good.
Okay, wait. You can always unmute yourselves. Unmuting Jason. Okay, so listen, people. You're all muted. You are able to unmute yourselves. If you've never used Zoom before, I'm going to tell you a secret because we only learned this yesterday or 2 days ago. If you hold down your space bar, you can talk. When you let go of your space bar, you go back to mute. So if you wanted to practice that, let's see who's on a computer. Let's see. Most of you look like phones because
I'm on a computer.
there it is, Sue. So Sue, did you just press down your space bar?
I did, and that's not something I knew before. So
No one did. We're all becoming experts.
I was going to say we are educational to a T in this group, you know?
Right. Here's another thing that some people who are new to Zoom might not know. Do you see lots of boxes on your screen? If you don't see lots of boxes on screen, you're in speaker view versus gallery view. I'm a gallery view kind of fan where you can see lots of faces, but my screen can only fit, I think, up to 39. But what if you're only seeing one face, the speaker, and no one else, you're in the wrong view. How do you change it? Every device is different. Most people will have some type of thing on their screen that says speaker view or gallery view, or a little like a thing that looks like a grid. That's the gallery view. If you're on an iPhone, or even an iPad, I think, if you swipe, you'll swipe across and you'll see more faces, like groups of faces. So if you're new to Zoom, that's another secret. I'm a gallery view fan, but if I wanted to, we could make us speaker view or not spotlight view. But since Jason and I are sharing, it'll be a little more confusing. If we get too many people, God forbid, if we get too many people, we'll go to spotlight view. Once you're past my size of the screen, then I'm going to put spotlight view in. So when I'm speaking or Jason's speaking, we'll be spotlighted, and then you'll just have a big one of us and lots of little squares as well. Okay. Now, since you're muted and you might not know you're muted, Jason, it's 12:04. Do you want to introduce yourself and I'll introduce myself since we have some new people? Should we wait a few minutes as people are still connecting? I feel I think we should. Oh, here, some people don't know they're muted. Because I didn't set here. Let me set it so it's muted when they walk in and mute upon entry. Oh, did you just do that, Jason?
I did not. I didn't touch anything.
Well, so I must have done it by accident. So, okay. Here's the deal. Jason and I usually start on time because we have a 1:15 drop dead time. But since people are coming on to this for the first time in their lives, and I'm seeing connecting to, as long as we still see connecting to audio on some of you guys, okay. And now you actually are past my screen. Now the next thing I'm going to do, here's another secret, Jason. So do you have a bunch of pictures on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, but then you have some of them just show their names and nothing else. Because they don't have video on. What you can do is, if you want to see the people who actually you can see, you go into. Let me see if it's under this one. You go into video where it's the video stop video thing. Go to video settings.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to video. Okay. Go to video settings. Go to video. Yeah. And if you click on, it's like a personal thing. Hide non-video participants. Then the people on your screen.
That's nice.
Will only be like if they choose not to be seen, that's great. But now they can all fit on your screen because there might be 25 plus people, but now only the people who have pictures I can see. That doesn't mean the people who I can't see are not here. I just, you made a choice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Do you know how many participants you have yet?
Yes. On the bottom, if you have a screen if you're not in like full screen or something right now we have 25 participants. I see at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that have 2 people there. So we have at least 30 people here, which is our normal number, Jason.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Yeah,
we're doing well.
We always get 30 to 50 people.
Yeah.
And
something there.
I don't see anyone else connecting on right this second. Total okay. And look on the top, I never knew this. It says on the top, total non-video participants. So 26 are video and 4 are non-video.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Jason,
how about that?
I don't see anyone else clicking on right this second. So if you wanted to start and introduce yourself, I'll introduce myself and then we'll jump into the topic.
Excellent. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Fryer. I am the associate pastor for youth, contemporary worship, and media. And during the COVID pandemic, I have reduced that down to just media. Pretty much all that I do these days. But I've been at Westminster for 14 years. I've been ordained for 3 years. And this has been my first full year. This is actually a year anniversary, I think, of when you and I started doing the dialogue together, Alex.
Thank God. We really enjoy it.
We made it. We survived. So this is one of my favorite groups that we have at Westminster, and I'm glad that we can meet in this interesting way today. Sorry again that we don't have cookies and coffee for everybody. It's BYOB, I think.
Yeah, and if you've never had the cookies at Westminster, then you really are missing something.
Market District's finest, everybody. Market District's finest. Yeah, that's it.
Very nice. Well, then I will introduce myself. I will put the spotlight on me. I'm getting good at this. I'm telling you. Here it is. So, and okay, so I'm Rabbi Alex. If you're new to us, because we don't usually have this many, of course we do. And and by the way, this is not my background. This is I faked it in case anyone thinks I'm in my room because you think that I'm breaking the quarantine. I could also be here. And I can be here and I can be here. Okay. But I am here. Okay. So back to us. All right. So welcome to Christian Jewish Dialogue. We've been doing this for a few years. Jason, I like that. Very nice, San Francisco. And and thank you for joining us. We've been doing this. The way we've been running this is Jason says something, I say something. Notice I put you first. Jason,
I did see that. Yeah, I caught that.
And I say something, and then we'll go back to gallery view. If you don't know how to unmute, well, you'll wave your hands rapidly, or if you really know how to use Zoom, you can raise your hand. With your virtually, because there's a raise your hand thing. We will have conversations. What's nice is every month we hear people saying, "Oh, I can't hear you. Use the microphone." Well, now we can hear people. And if we get over 100 people, if you come back next month and we have more than 100 people, then something went terribly wrong because we won't get 100 people. But we are live streaming as well and we'll send you the live stream. And I've been told I use my hands too much when I talk. So, Jason, do you want to get us started on the topic, or do you want me to do it?
I mean, you threw me under the bus, so I'm happy to take the lead.
That's from age, youth. We know what we're doing.
Yeah. So I have been reflecting on the question that I posed to Alex when we decided we would do this virtually was, what is it that gives you hope in this season? And that's an interesting question. Some people struggle with that question in an age where every news cycle seems to be a little bit more disastrous and the headlines get worse and worse and worse. So we want to talk about hope. And part of that for me comes down to there's this text from the Gospels that has been gnawing away at me ever since this quarantine started. And so I thought I'd read this for us and talk a little bit about hope and a little bit about prayer and what prayer, an honest prayer, can look like in a season like this. This is a story from Mark chapter 9, if you're interested, if you have a Bible, you want to follow along or something like that. Or you could just listen, because this is one of those stories that is just totally narrative in style. So it's a bit like listening to story time. When Jesus, Peter, James, and John approached the other disciples, they had come down from the Transfiguration. We'll talk about that later. They saw a large crowd surrounding them and legal experts arguing with them. Suddenly, the whole crowd caught sight of Jesus. They ran to greet him, overcome with excitement. Jesus asked them, "What are you arguing about?" Someone from the crowd responded, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, since he has a spirit that doesn't allow him to speak. Whenever it overpowers him, it throws him into a fit. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and stiffens up. So I spoke to your disciples to see if they could. They couldn't." Jesus answered them, "You faithless generation." Jesus is really, gentle with his words sometimes. "You faithless generation, how long will I be with you? How long will I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a fit. He fell on the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the father, "How long has this been going on?" The father said, "Since he was a child. It has often thrown him into a fire or into water, trying to kill him. If you can do anything, help us. Show compassion." Jesus said to him, "If you can do anything, all things are possible for the one who has faith." At that, the boy's father cried out, "I believe. Help my unbelief." Noticing that the crowd had surged together, Jesus spoke harshly to the unclean spirit, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you to come out of him and never enter him again." After screaming and shaking the boy horribly, the spirit came out. The boy seemed to be dead. In fact, several people said that he had died. But Jesus took his hand, lifted him up, and he arose. After Jesus went into a house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we throw this spirit out?" Jesus answered, "Throwing this kind of spirit out requires prayer." And that's the end of this odd little story. And the line that grabbed me almost immediately, it was like day 2 of quarantine when working from home still seemed like a good idea, was this line, "I believe, help my unbelief." And it's this awkward tension of, I totally believe that God is doing something in all of this that will work for good. I totally believe that God is still in charge of the universe. I totally have hope for the future. Help my unbelief, because there are moments every day, every minute that we're home in this thing that I feel like I oscillate between hope and despair. This is great, we'll be okay. This is horrible, we're never getting out of it. Isn't this thing doing some great things to our society? Oh my God, the economy. You go back and forth and back and forth. And so I find that line really helpful, right? I believe, help my unbelief. And a friend of mine was preaching on this passage on a Zoom church service. You haven't lived until you've done church by Zoom. It's horribly awkward. He came to this line at the end. Jesus' disciples come around him and say, well, what the heck? How come we couldn't get it out? And Jesus says, this kind only comes out through prayer. And my friend changed the way I view this passage when he said, where's the prayer in the story? If you read back through it, the crowd doesn't pray. The boy doesn't pray. Jesus doesn't pray. The disciples don't pray. The only thing that looks like a prayer at all is, I believe, help my unbelief. And what a beautiful recognition of what prayer can look like, right? I think in Presbyterian circles, I'm sure it's totally different for our Jewish brothers and sisters, but anytime I ask for prayer in public, would someone close our meeting with prayer, I get the shoe inspection, right? Everybody looks down and doesn't want to speak out loud at all. What a beautiful prayer to offer up in this season of, I totally believe, I totally like this, I'm good, we're great, we're going to get through this. And at the same time, help my unbelief. It's a beautiful tension to hold in these two, to say, God is still in control. God still holds the world in his hands. God still has a plan for all of this. Another scripture in the New Testament says that God will work all things for good for those who believe in him, right? Like that this somehow has some sort of outcome that will be pleasing and glorifying to God. I believe all of that while I hold in tension the stuff that makes me nervous, the anxieties, the difficulties, and the intricacies of what's going on in the pandemic. So I think that's an interesting thing to hold on to in this season, right? That I was joking with some of the folks that were on earlier that we've been doing youth group by Zoom, which gives me the ability to mute my teenagers on demand. And I jokingly said, I may never go back. I can just silence all of them. I have the power. There are some beautiful pieces of this. There are some things that maybe we want to carry with us into whatever the new normal looks like about doing ministry. I love celebrating the creativity of things. Like we're doing Jewish Christian Dialogue by Zoom. Who'd have thought? There's a certain amount of creativity here that I love. And so trying to hold in tension these beautiful pieces and the more difficult pieces, I believe, help my unbelief has been the kind of rallying cry for me for hope. So that is where I am today, Rabbi Alex.
Oh, you're throwing it over to me now.
That's it, man. That's it.
Here we go. I'm changing the spotlight. I'm putting you back on gallery so I can see all your faces. And thank you, Jason. So to jump off, yesterday we had a class on Zoom, and a lot of people showed up. And the title was for discussion: "Is there a God?" ? Because I did it with the college kids a week earlier, and all the adults wanted to come. None of the college kids wanted to come, but the adults all wanted to come. So we did it again yesterday, and thinking about, that prayer, the prayer of disbelief, the tension. We talked a lot about that tension of belief and faith. There was a book by Rabbi Naomi Levy. She's one of my teachers and one of my favorite rabbis. I stalk her. And she wrote a book called To Begin Again. It was kind of like the When Bad Things Happen to Good People of the 80s, written in the 90s. And in it, she talks about losing her parent at a young age. She talks about hope and healing and how she got through it. She had a chapter on Shabbat, and Oprah Winfrey loved that chapter. She was amazed about Shabbat. But one of my favorite parts of this book was she talked about that when you're angry with God, God, how can this be happening? How could this happen to me? Why? The whys. The anger towards God is actually still a prayer. She calls them prayers of protest. And I kind of like this. It's stuck with me. This prayers of protest idea that even when you're angry and even if you're saying nasty things to God, God can handle it. It's okay. You don't have to be the God police. But I do believe there's prayers of protest. I went to a wedding once in New York. It was terrible. And I was doing this wedding, and I meet the father of the bride for the first time. Okay. Oh, wait, let me see who's jumping. Okay, Bob, we're muting you, and you're muted. Okay, good. Sometimes you get through the stuff.
I'm telling you, the power, man, the power. It's so good.
I'm telling you, it's great. Okay, so so what happens? So I go to this wedding, and at the wedding, I meet the father of the bride, because I've been meeting with a couple on Zoom or Skype back then. And the father of the bride goes into his rampage on how God doesn't exist. Oh, there's no God. My parents went through the Holocaust. He's just like spitting mad. I just met him. I just met him. He's yelling at me. And as he walks away, and his wife says, "Don't listen to a word he says. Nothing you don't believe in would make you that angry." That man is a man of true faith. And I call that a prayer of protest. So where's my hope when the world looks like it's coming to an end, the world as we know it? And I've been, I'm old. You're not like you people are young. I'm old. I've seen Y2K, and I've seen, I wasn't around for 1918, but people, whenever this happens, whenever the world is, 1999, 2010, whenever the world is really bleak, they interview rabbis. Right now, you can interview anyone on the street. They would interview rabbis. Remember, some minister, priest was, they were selling everything because the world was coming to an end. The Incas, whatever it was. And religiously, I always quote the Noah story, that at the end of the Noah story, God says, I'll never destroy the world again, And when religiously people say this is it, I always go back to religion. Now, I believe we have the tools to make this world a better place and to fix the mistakes that are out there, the incomplete nature of creation. I believe we have the tools to cure this and to survive this, but it's terrifying. And so where do we find the hope? It is, and I always think of hopes and prayers. That was our prayers and thoughts. There's this thing that's viral, not viral. Sorry, that's a bad word now. But there's a thing on the internet there's a thing on the internet. Whenever there's like a mass shooting, everyone sends their thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers.
Says, "Oh, thanks a lot. That's really going to help me now." And maybe actions would be better. And I don't know if it was Jason, it was you, or if it was with Jim, but we actually had a talk about hope. And about hope in religion, and I was actually anti-hope because I said, hope doesn't do anything. Hope in the Lord. It's a hope in the Lord, and then get to work. Use your hands, and because hope can stop you from doing something if you don't do something with it. But yesterday I also had another class, and that was on the Book of Psalms. And as we're doing the Book of Psalms, Joan, who's one of your squares in there, would say, "Wow, what a coincidence that we're talking about this right now." And I have from yesterday my Book of Psalms, and I realize as we're teaching this Book of Psalms, we're going through them. We were doing Psalm 6, right? I'm looking at Psalm 6, a prayer when the community or individual suffers oppression and deprivation, sickness and distress. And And someone goes, wow, that's really timely. But then the next one is timely and the next one's timely. And some people walk around with a book of Psalms. In Judaism, I don't know about in Christianity, but in Judaism, there are people who have a book of Psalms, in their pocket, and they're just constantly reading them. It's almost like a mantra. It's something that just, because what's happened now has happened before. There's been distress in the world. There's been disease and horrible moments in history. And sometimes a mantra helps. My wife does Torah yoga on Friday morning. And the whole idea is, and I don't attend because, I'm sleeping. But the whole idea is that, again, having something to hold on to, planting yourself, being part of the earth. And so I think the book of Psalms is filled with providing hope. I think that, we hope, and when someone said to me yesterday, I'm finishing up because I know I just rant. Someone said to me yesterday about, we have a prayer for the sick called the Mishaberach. And, I guess maybe it's a little more meaningful right now. They said, who's the Mishaberach for? Is it for God or is it for people? Who's the blessing? May God give blessings and healing to these people. And then we list like 100 names. And unfortunately, it gets longer and longer. And so, and I said, it's really not for God, because you don't have to say it out loud for God to hear you. If you get the name wrong, there's a whole thing spiel. If you get the name wrong, God still knows. If you didn't stick the name in the wall, in the Western Wall in Israel, God still knows what's in your pocket, even if you don't put it on the paper. But when we say it, when we're hopeless, we need to do something. Sometimes prayer can help. Yeah. And by the way, Jason, you think your people are bad at praying on the spot? I thought you were talking about the rabbis who look down on their shoes. If you said, who wants to give a prayer right now, I would be looking at my shoes as well. So we're really bad at that. And I think that sometimes you do need something to hang on to. I recommend because it kind of goes both ways for us, is the book of Psalms. You'd be surprised how almost every single one of them can relate to us today. Jason, do you want a rebuttal to add, or should I start unmuting people? What do you want?
Well, I just want to toss in here the same friend that pointed out the prayer thing in my my scripture this morning is his name's Mark Ostreicher. He wrote a book on hope, and he has one of the best definitions of hope I've ever seen, and it's in line with what you're saying. Hope is faithful confidence that God continues to author a story that moves us from vision to action. That God is continuing to work on a story with us, but it's not enough to just say, I hope that God's story will turn out well. I believe God is writing a story and I have a role to play in that. That's the hope. So even in the Corona thing, I have hope that God's story is going to work out well, but I have a role to play in how it works out well. I have a role to play in looking in on my neighbors and thanking healthcare professionals and the grocers at Giant Eagle and things like that. So hope as action is a really key piece of all of this, I think.
That was the conversation we had yesterday. Was the same thing, was that how is God active in the world? And I said, we are God's hands. That we have to, we pray for strength because God can give us strength. After 9/11, Harold Kushner, who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People, was on Larry King. And, it was the idea that God didn't push the 9/11 button, but God is what gets us through these moments. And
right.
So God is active and talks and hears, but it's not, you have to listen, and we speak for God and through God as well. So it's God is not alone in the work of creation. So very good. Okay. So anything else, or should we open up to questions? Now, let me explain how Zoom questions work, because if I unmute all, that's probably a mistake with 35 people on right now, because how do you know it's your turn? Let's try a couple of ways of doing it. One, if you know how to unmute yourself by using your space bar, which means if you're on a phone, it's a whole nother issue. But if you're on a computer, desktop, laptop, if you hold down your space bar, you'll unmute yourself. You could say, I've got a question or a comment, because in Judaism, we don't ask questions, we give comments. Only the rabbis ask the questions, the people give their answers. And or you can also, if you're a chat expert, you can send us a chat. I have only that you can chat to the leaders. So just in case you say something inappropriate, it won't go to everyone. So you can actually send a chat question on the bottom of your screen. It might say chat, and it would come to the host, which would be Jason and myself. Or you can even, if you're really good at this, and I don't even know how to do it, you can raise your hand. Somewhere on your thingy, you have raise hand.
It's in participants, I believe.
Under participants, okay. You go onto your thing, and you could. Well, I guess I'm a host, so I can't raise my hand, but you can raise your hand, and every now you can like go like this. So let's try. Oh, and there we go. Bill and Janet raised their hand. Linda raised her hand. If you're not on my screen, it's because you're a non-video participant, and I guess I have to open that up to you too. So let's see. Show non-video participants. Okay, now I can see non-video participants as well. Here we go. So, okay, Bill and Janet unraised their hand, so Linda's hand is still up. So unmuting Linda. Linda, we can hear you. No, we can't hear you. Stop talking. Unmute.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, because what happens is I unmute you as you're unmuting you, and then I mute you.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make one real quick comment when you were talking about hope and coming from the Catholic perspective, because there's this is a little saying that someone had given me when we were talking about hope once, and let me read it to you. It says, "Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are Anger and Courage. Anger that courage to make them the way they ought to be."
Wait. Did everyone hear that, or did everyone get blocked off at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. Read. Yes. Every now and then, someone will get muted with not you. It's the internet, and we missed the line, and whatever you're saying, you almost made me cry, and then you.
Okay. All right. So let me read the whole thing again.
Yes, this is beautiful.
This is coming from a Catholic, okay? Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are Anger and Courage. Anger that things are the way they are. Courage to make them the way they ought to be.
Okay,
yeah,
you made me cry again.
It's just one of those where it was good enough. I printed it up and I have it right by my desk because I think it is something really important for us to remember, because hope does there is that anger that goes with it, but it's the courage, prophets, talk about prophets, having that ability to speak up, to try to make things the way they should be. So I just wanted to add that in as a comment. Now somebody else can talk.
That was beautiful, Linda. Thank you. We will mute you now. And I think we see Bill and Janet with their hand raised. So we're unmuting you. You are not unmuted. You must have to do it yourself because you're better than I am. Okay. Unmute.
There we go.
Okay. Bill and Janet.
As soon as I saw this topic that Jason proposed, what gives you hope, I thought for a minute and I realized that under these conditions where I'm living very close quarters with a few members of my family whom I don't ordinarily see this often or this intensely, I find that what gives me hope is the other people.
Wow.
If I were alone, I would probably be a little more cast down more often. But with people around, all of them lifting their spirits, they're lifting my spirits too.
That's beautiful.
And since it's unmuted, I would just like to say, being a first-time participant in this session is very hopeful to me. Just for those of you that don't know us, and I think most of you don't, I am a lay minister in Community of Christ in Bethel Park, and Bill has been president of his synagogue in Newcastle. And it's just very wonderful for us to participate in something where instead of me going to synagogue with him or him coming to church with me, we're actually doing something that is provided for both of us together on, both of our platforms, so to speak. So it's very helpful.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Wow. By the way, I'm getting better at Spotlight View, but I'm not perfect. So I apologize if I keep switching off the Spotlight View, but I'm going to get better at it. Yeah, so Jason, that's we are listening to these people again. If you raise your hand, that worked out well. But I know some of you might not know how to raise your hand electronically, but that was helpful. Wait, did I see another hand raised over here? No. Okay. So, by the way, being in the house close quarters is also dangerous for some of us. It is hopeful that I don't kill my children and my wife doesn't kill me. But I can tell you, people who have no one home, this is really hard on them. I mean, It's hard enough to be alone, 24/7. It's another thing to be 24/7 and you can't even go out on the street. You can't go to a supermarket. It's a whole nother level of horror for some people. So it's good. I think that we do have to feed off of each other's hope. Janet, I didn't know your backstory. That's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah. And to tag on to that, I think that I've loved being home. I am way too busy under normal circumstances. And to be able to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my kids every day is incredible. But you're absolutely right. What is one person's blessing can be another person's curse. So one of my spiritual practices I started a couple of days ago is just going through my address book on my phone and trying to find people that I think are struggling with this. The more extroverted people I know, people that are living alone, and just try to reach out and text them every night, like 2 or 3 people a night, just to say, how you doing? How you holding up? I think that's an easy enough spiritual practice to get into.
It's very good. It's important, and so I learned what to do with the Spotlight video. So now, since no one's electronically raising their hand, now the best way to do it is to wave your hands like Joan just did. Okay, Joan, you put the thumbs up, which is pretty close.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
That means you agree, but you know what?
I didn't know what to do. So
Joan, you're doing a great job. We love you. Okay.
Did you read what I wrote? Did you read that?
Just now, where, when,
wow. 2 minutes ago. I don't know. Did it go through? That's what I'm asking.
You mean
I wrote something?
Did you chat me something?
Yes.
No, it did not go through.
Why didn't it go through? What do I have to do to get it to go through?
Did you type it in? Can you see?
Yes, I typed it in.
Press enter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
By the way, neither did I. This is not like, Joan, Joan, you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know that either.
So now it's gone.
Because we can read it now.
Can you read it?
I can read it. I'll make it anonymous. Here, let me read this anonymously. I am always impressed by the similarities between our two faiths. Our similarities outweigh our differences, especially during this critical and difficult time. That was anonymous, Joan. Okay, so
I don't know whoever said that.
That's my name, anonymous. But I have another comment.
Please.
So I wonder if the turning to God during this crisis, I don't know what other word to use, but crisis. Do you think people are viewing God differently depending on where they're living and the experience of the pandemic in their lives? For example, my cousin lives in New York City. People in New York City may either they've lost faith in God entirely, or they're whatever faith they belong to, they're turning to God every minute of every day. Compared to, let's say, if you live in out in Wyoming in the hinterlands where there's very few cases, do you think people are not seeking God in the same manner or to the same extent? I mean, is God there when we need him or her? That's sort of like a existential kind of a question. I don't know. What do you think?
Jason, you want to go first or you want to go second?
I mean, I'll shoot from the hip here. I know that. I'm sorry if I froze. I think to answer the question, will people view God differently? Almost 100% yes. I think even for those folks in our world that would claim little to no faith, this is going to cause some questions, and this is going to stir some stuff up in souls that might not have brought those questions to God before. So are people going to view God differently? Absolutely. What will that look like? I don't know yet. One of the things that I hold on to, I don't know if you guys do a meet and greet during your services. One of the things we do every service is after the announcements, we say, please stand and share the peace of Christ with each other. And we go around the room and shake hands. I have been looking forward to that particular moment of our services most of all in this isolation, that first one. When we come back together after however long of not being able to see or touch or embrace anybody, and to all of a sudden say, greet your neighbors. I think we're going to need to add extra time to our service for that. And I think that's going to be a beautiful thing. I also think a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork out of this, realizing that church and synagogue and places like this, religious institutions, are a good place for connection. And that that's something we're badly missing right now is we don't have the connections that we used to have.
Yeah, it's I'd say that, and we realize we've been doing this. We started pretty early on. At the time, people said we were a little crazy and being overly cautious. So it took us a little while to figure out that we were turning off our services. We have services every morning and every night, but we were turning off our services as soon as services end. And then we realized that people need time. We call that in our synagogue kiddush after Saturday morning services, and you have coffee and cookies. But we think the human part is actually the most important, even though the cookies do help. And so what I started doing, as you get good at Zoom, even if you have to go, like even if I have to go, have dinner with my family, I leave the meeting running, and I've seen this sometimes where I'll go back on 10, 15 minutes later and still see people talking. So you don't have to end the meeting when we're over, because I think we have to make sure that people understand they can connect. I think it's great for them to see each other and for us to use services, but we agree. A lot of us say the after service is more important than the service. Now, the question to Joan, where you're located, I definitely believe is important. I can tell you that I had a congregant once. This is back in Georgia. It would never happen here. And a person says to me, Rabbi, I was coming to services every day. I was going through some hard times, but I got to admit, my job's doing great. My kids are doing great. I really don't need you anymore. And, I'm doing great. And I said, don't worry, you'll be back. And so, that there is, the more you need, we find that actually people come out more when times are bad, and when times are good, you don't need us as much. But I can tell you I see a big difference among rabbis, because you're always talking to rabbis throughout the country now. The jokes, right? Here in Pittsburgh, we haven't had our bump, right? Where our hospitals are not overwhelmed yet. And so you get these jokes, Passover canceled because of the plague. Or, I get a lot of these, right? And they're, where someone says for Passover, for the cup of Elijah, put it outside your door because Elijah's not allowed in your house, for Passover. Now, all those are kind of funny still, but I don't think they're funny in New Rochelle. I think that we find that the jokes and I don't know when you're in it if we're going to find it as funny. So I do think where you're located, how connected are you to Synagogue God, and how angry are you will be different, definitely between Wyoming and New York City. But we share a nursery school with a non-secular nursery school, but the woman who leads it is Christian, and she said a great thing to me. She said this moment is going to kind of show us who we are and what we're made of. There's some of us who have 1,000 rolls of toilet paper, and then there's some people who have no rolls of toilet paper. And how many people will say, I got to take care of myself and my family, and how many people give it out? So Amy says to me yesterday, she doesn't know I'm talking about her. She's somewhere she's in a different meeting actually down the hall. Everyone's got a computer. She says to me, you know what I'm going to do? Is she tells me, she goes, those, you ever see I don't know if your neighborhoods have the same thing. Every now and then someone puts books on there. They have like this thing for books. Take one, give one. It's usually kids' books. It's a cute little thing you have in your lawn that you're walking by, and it's like a book drop. Like just a person. She says, I'm going to drop off toilet paper in that as well. Like we have all these rolls of toilet paper, and there are people who need it, and you can't get them in the stores. You shouldn't go to the stores. She's going to put a roll of toilet paper in there. Need one, take one. And I think that's what Joan, this is the woman I was talking to, said, is that we're going to find out what we're made of. I mean, it's, again, I understand this, but people are going to say, I need to take care of myself and my family. I'm not saying that's evil, but we're going to find out, are we going to give it away? Are we going to sell it am I going to sell my roll of toilet paper for $50? It's 2-ply. Or going to, keep it for myself. So I think, Joan, it's a great question. I mean, we're Pittsburgh. I mean, thank God we were social distancing. We're still behind the times, but we're not as behind the times as if you're New York or the state of Washington or Northern California. But and it's scary out there. I do see a hand raised. I also have one here, but I'll read the Zoom chat. But I see a hand raised. I have an Amy. I am unmuting you because your hand is up. Oh, you unmuted yourself. You're so good. Okay.
Well, I've been doing these. So there are a couple of things that I was going to say. One was that my experience from talking to a variety of people are that different people just seem to go and cope differently. So there are people that they sort of curl into a ball and they don't talk to anybody for a while, and then they come out and they're kind of okay with it. There are other people that are doom and gloom. And there are other people that are, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I think that that's something that's fundamentally about how people function. I think also as far as religious, people, I think, have found different communities that they can visit people and connect with people. And I think that those communities are going to be different and are going to be more lasting because it's how people don't feel so alone. And as far as the little lending libraries, some people are leaving food because food is a really big problem right now.
Mm-hmm. Very good. It's now, Ron, I have this. Okay, so in the group, in the chat, Ron, I'm going to call on you since you have a nice one. The thing was, this discussion reminds me of a Christian poem. I didn't know it was Christian, but because it's on every doctor's office I've ever been to, but I love it. Footprints in the Sand. I have it available if you would like me to read it. I am unmuting Ron because, oh wait, you are unmuted. Ron, you have Footprints in the Sand with you?
Yes, I do.
Oh, they share it with us. And then Sue will teach you how to raise your hand.
One night I dreamed a dream. I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to the Lord. When the last scene of my life shot before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. There was only 1 set of footprints. I realized this was at the lowest and saddest times of my life. This always bothered me, and I questioned the Lord about my dilemma. Lord, you told me when I decided to follow you, you would walk and talk with me all the way. But I'm aware that during the most troublesome times of my life, there is only 1 set of footprints. I just don't understand why, when I need you most, you leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you, never ever. During your trials and testings, when you saw only 1 set of footprints, it was I that carried you.
Beautiful. Ron, that's beautiful. Thank you.
I have heard people comment that poem is totally incomplete, though. It needs moments in the sand where my feet are just dragging in solid lines as the Lord is just pulling me from wherever I am to where I need to be next, kicking and screaming. So I'll add that amendment to it. There are times that I'm kicking and screaming, and this might be one of them.
I love it. I've seen it so many times. And of course, everyone, there's this famous, these famous lines that everyone takes for themselves, right? It's Christian, it's Yiddish, it's Jewish, it's Russian, so Ron, I thank you. I don't have that on me, so you did great. And I do think I'm being dragged sometimes too. Now, Sue, I'm going to teach you because I'm unmuting you. Actually, you can only unmute yourself, but here's the deal. Sue just asked me, how do you raise your hand? Sue, what device are you on?
I'm on a laptop.
A
I'd like
laptop.
to-
Okay. So how does someone raise their hand like people are doing? Because I actually don't know.
I think it's under. So at the very bottom of the screen, there's a little. Down here, there's a little bar, and one of the buttons on that bar should be participants.
Okay.
Yes,
Click on that.
yes, I see it now. Thank you.
Ah.
Yeah.
Now, what
Okay.
if you're on your phone?
I don't know.
Does anyone know? Anyone have a phone? Where this is a Zoom class as well. Does anyone have a phone and knows how to raise your hand on a phone? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? All right. Now, Sue, is your hand raised?
No, I just want, yes.
Oh, you're just learning how. Okay. Good. Okay. So now, and there, Bob. Wait, Bob, you had your phone on while walking through your house, and now all we have is your picture. It was, yeah. I felt like I was watching. What is it? The Blair Witch Project. Okay, here it goes. You are unmuted, Bob, and you can speak. Right, Bob? Bob? Oh, you're just practicing on raising your hand? We're good. Bob in 3. Bob, Dilly, 2.
I'm
There
back.
he is. There
Bob,
he
you
is.
wanna speak?
I had a drop out there. Actually, I was at the blood bank.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I was trying to advertise for them, but I do platelets, and they're not collecting platelets today at that particular site. So that's a whole story. But yeah, if you're using a cell phone, if you tap on the screen, at least for Android, on the lower right, there's a more function, and that seems to get you.
Very nice. So Android, tap on screen, lower right, there's options.
Yep, there's a more ... and it brings up a menu, and there's raise a hand there.
Great. Now, where do you go give blood? Teach us a little.
Well, normally there's a church about 5 minutes from my house, and normally that's where I go give blood. And I do apheresis because you could do it every 7 days, I think. I try for normally during the year 3-4 weeks, something like that. But during this time, I've been trying to do it every 2. But they were explaining to me that and this is a mobile site. At the mobile site, they can't control the washing and cleaning as much as they can at their permanent sites. So for me, the next nearest one is in the South Hills. I think it's up in Mount Lebanon somewhere. So I'll probably try to reschedule there.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay. So, Bob, you did a good job. You taught us. We're muting you again. And it's back to Jason and me. So anyone want to raise their hand? And now, if you don't know how to do any of this, just raise your hand wildly and we'll call on you. But it's on your 2 screens. So I have to look on 2 screens to do this. So let's see. Anyone raising their hands who has a question, a comment, a prayer? How you can answer yourself. What gives you hope? We learn from each other. You teach us. So any hand raising? I'm looking on another page. I don't even see myself on this page. I don't see. Herky, are you trying to say something or just playing with your phone? Let's see. Herky, are you trying to say anything? Oh, you're muted.
No.
Okay, then stop talking. Okay. Okay. Yeah. See, if you play with your phone, I think you're also trying to raise your hand. Anyone else? Because we can still talk. Sue, are you on? Let's see. Someone just chatted with me. Here we go. I'm looking at my chat.
I see Sue and I see Mary Lou. We'll go in order here.
You go ahead. I'm looking at a chat for them. One of the chats.
Go ahead, Sue.
Okay, so you asked what gives me hope, and I literally try to find the silver linings. To me, hope is a positive thing, and I was working with I tutor ESL, and I was working with my student this morning, and we just talked about what we're thankful for and what we're grateful for, and there are silver linings everywhere. So that's what gives me hope. And it helps distract me and, get my mind off of the overwhelming nature of what's going on around us.
Example.
An example? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think
You want an example?
silver linings.
Silver linings. Hey, I had foot surgery 6.5 weeks ago, almost 7 weeks ago, and I was transferred to a shoe yesterday, and that's a silver lining.
Nice.
No, there are lots of silver linings. We talked about this morning, we talked about what we're thankful for. And they're Muslim and, they pray a lot. And we just talked about, prayer is good. We're thankful for our families. We're thankful that we're healthy. We're thankful that, there's just so much, right? There's just so much. And again, it's gratitude, grateful, just so much. That gives me hope.
All right, we'll try and keep going in order. Mary Lou had a thought to jump in on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
I just wondered if you would, both of you, Rabbi and Jason, if you would give us the names and the authors of those two books you mentioned.
Oh, your book and my book. My book was Naomi Levy, Levy.
Wait a minute. Okay.
And her, okay, take your time. Levy. And the book is To Begin Again. Well, like to start over, to begin again. And now the number one book in Jewish history is When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold Kushner, Kushner. So every Jew has read that book. I don't think I've ever met a Jew who hasn't heard that book or read it, but it's more than the Bible. So Kushner's When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And then if you've read that, then you can do Naomi Levy's To Begin Again. That's almost like, I call it part two. And Jason, what books were you using?
I was looking at a book by my friend Mark, and he has a terrible last name, Mark Ostreicher. It's Oestreicher. Mark Ostreicher, and his book Hope Casting. It is one of my favorite books. I try and read it once a year, even though I'm not the biggest reader in the world, but when I find one I like, I just keep cycling through it again and again. But Mark Ostreicher's Hope Casting is a phenomenal book.
By the way, Jason, I think you can actually chat. They can't chat with everyone, but we can. You can type that in, because that's a lot of letters. You could type that into your chat to everyone. I think we all see it then, and you can write it down. If Mary Lou, if you need the spelling of that one, that was more letters than I can handle. Oh, there you go.
See, look at that. We're getting it all figured out.
I would still be typing that. That's okay. By the way, I got a couple chats from people here. These are the anonymous ones. It's not Joan. The pandemic, here's one. The pandemic has given me the opportunity to think about my relationship with God. Actually, my relationship changes frequently. I know that God is always with me, but my response changes with what's going on in my life. Here's another person. Number two. Wait. Oh, there's somebody coming up. Wait. Okay, wait. Oh, here we go. Next one. I'm thankful that this happened in the spring and not as winter was approaching. I think there's a lot of us who appreciate being able to go outside. Here's another one. Is Bill from Newcastle the Bill who has been coming to Minion? Yes, that's Bill. Yes. I guess I wasn't supposed to read this one out loud. Okay, yes, that's the same Bill. And actually, no, that's a different Bill. That's the Morning Minion Bill. It's not the same Bill. He's my adult dead Bill. And when I go out, this is, okay, last comment I have up here. When I go outside in my yard, I feel hope. I see flowers, budding trees. It's easy to know that there is reason for hope. That's really nice. I hate to say it's gonna, my reason. What am I thankful for? My colonoscopy got canceled. So that's that's what I'm.
Excellent.
That's the UPMC called me today. I'm like, oh man,
Shucks. I again, it's all about perspective in a lot of ways. I am an outdoorsy guy by nature. I love to ride my bike. And the other day I drove from my house to the Montour Trail. Don't go on the Montour Trail if you want a social distance, because it is packed. But that there was something striking for me about seeing Target's parking lot empty and seeing the Montour Trail overflowing. That I was like, ooh, interesting. Let's pay attention to this, that we are kind of reshuffling priorities in the midst of all this. I think it's kind of neat. We have a caller, Mr. Bob Dilly from the Central Blood Bank. You're on the air.
We were talking about where there are tie-ins to scripture, and the one that occurred to me is the story about manna. Because for one thing, there's God has a way of smacking me upside the head and making me realize who's in charge. But the other thing about manna that strikes me as interesting is there's specific instructions, right? 6 days, one deal. The seventh day, a different deal. So not only do we need to depend on God, but there's specific rules. And we're getting a lot of rules and things about, that we're supposed to do and not do. And some people are listening, some people are not. Jason, you referred to the parks, right? I think in New York City and other places, they've closed the parks down because people, weren't following the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those weird things that it's only going to work if we all do it. So it looks like, we mentioned a couple of times that Pennsylvania was one of the earlier states to do this.
Right.
And it looks like we are flattening the curve a little bit. But still, the distancing really only works out well if everybody plays by the same rules.
Did you see that? Did you see those idiots from University of Texas? They went down for spring break. 70 of them, 44. The article yesterday said 44 of them tested positive. Out of
every time this comes up, I feel the need to defend my people.
Sorry, child.
No. When you see a news report say millennials on spring break are screwing it up, millennials are like me, 30-somethings, 40-somethings with kids.
They're not college kids.
Right. College kids are Gen Z. So quit blaming us for all your problems. Blame the young kids. It's their fault.
These were college kids. These were not millennials. I did not say millennials. I'm pro millennial, but that's.
I will throw my generation under the bus so fast and so hard, but it's not our fault this time.
I think millennials are much more spiritual than us old people. Okay, Susie, I see your hand raised. Okay, I'm unmuting you. You're unmuting yourself. There you go.
Right. So along the lines of, like, I was nodding in agreement to the idea about going outside and seeing flowers in bloom and things like that. But I think for everybody, it's different. And so I think that when we're having those good moments, that's when it's really important to really make a mental note of that. And even a physical note, even like have something, on your refrigerator or something that's like in your daily life to remind you, because when you feel low, the mind doesn't go there. The mind doesn't go, oh, what can I do to get myself out of this? I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to look at this photo album, or, like sometimes it's hard to get out of that place. So I think maybe doing something that will allow us to sort of fall into that happy, place a little more easily and a little more organically might help.
Yeah.
Great.
Whatever it is.
I've had to actually schedule. So like I said, I'm big into cycling. And the record yesterday was 6 Zoom calls. I was on 6 Zoom calls in one day, which is at least 7 too many Zoom calls in one day. But at 3 o'clock, I go biking. I've blocked it. Like, I am not doing Zoom. I am not editing church videos. I am not chatting with people. There's this weird thing that we all, I was reading a book about hurry before this, and how America is way too addicted to hurry and constantly go. And one of the things the author said that I think is being proven true in this moment is just adding more hours to the day wouldn't actually help. If you've ever said like, oh, I wish there were just 26 hours a day, or, 8 days a week or whatever. No, it wouldn't help. We just fill that with more busyness. And I see the very same thing happening for some of us in this pandemic. We all got, work stopped happening, and everybody went, oh, I have so much more time. And we've just chosen to fill it in different ways. And we are no less busy than, or at least I am no less busy than we were when we were, going to an office every day. So I think the intentionality, back to Susan's point, preacher, I ramble a lot. I think the intentionality is so huge there, rather than just stumbling into this thing kind of haphazardly, to kind of name like, okay, at this hour, I'm going to make room for myself and self-care. At this hour, I'm going to make room for my spouse who has to be with the kids while I'm on 6 Zoom calls every day, right? Like, some of those intentional markers are really, really critical in a season like this.
That's great. Amy, I'm about to call on you. I could tell you that I'm not going to know where, but Susie, I read exactly that just in the last 3 weeks, actually before like all heck broke loose, the idea of saving up hope. That this idea of like putting like storing it away for a rainy day because you don't have it when you need it sometimes. And I think that's genius that when you're feeling it, you write it down on your phone, you put it on your refrigerator, a line that works for you. You do need to save it up. It's that good. Yeah, that's why people like golf. That one good shot is what on the whole day. And I don't play golf, but that one good shot makes you come back for that feeling again. Yeah, you can't always. It's not always there when you need it. You got to save it up. That is great. Amy, you got you want to unmute yourself, or I'm going to unmute you? You're unmuted. Oh, I unmuted, but here, unmute.
There. Okay. So very early on, somebody said, and I don't remember where I saw it, but they said, take time every day for a thankfulness list. Think of the things in a few minutes that you're thankful for that day, because it changes how you're thinking. And that I found to be actually very helpful. So I put it out to you also.
Schedule it in.
It too is a very great practice. I have this little notebook that contains my to-do list for the day, any given day. I can't show you all of it because it's
that paper.
Yeah, man, paper.
You're
it's
a millennial.
ancient technology. This paper thing. But part of my practice is I write down 3 things I'm grateful for before I'm allowed to write what I have to do that day. You'd be shocked what that'll do to the start of a day, especially a day when you have a lot to do.
Say that again. That was so good. You write 3 days. Say it again. I thought that was great.
So every morning starts with a time of prayer, reading through a prayer book that I have, and then I go to write down my calendar and my agenda for the day, the to-do list. But I have to start with 3 things I'm grateful for before I can write down what the to-do list for the day is. And again, that kind of changes the whole perspective of what you have to do through the day. Gratitude is a huge tool, not just during a pandemic. That's always. Yeah.
I have.
Very nice. Sue, I see your hand physically raised. By the way, one thing before Sue goes on, let's see. Who talked about the book Hurry? Hurry. Who mentioned that?
That was me. It's a book called Here, I'll put it in the chat. I'll let Sue go ahead and talk.
Chat, and then Sue can talk.
Another useful tip, because there can be a tendency to, think negatively or be overwhelmed. Sometimes I think, okay, for every negative, think of 3 positives. So, if you verbalize or someone, verbalizes a negative, then think of 3 positives that go with it.
Yeah. I just had someone say to me today, their relative has it and they're in the hospital and they're not doing well. And, I said, the newspapers, the reports don't tell us all the people recover, but more people recover than not. It's if you're a statistics, math kind of person, that doesn't mean that each of these numbers is not a human. And we can't forget that when we hear these huge numbers, that each one is a human. Hey, each one has a family, a mom, a father. And so, but yeah, I do believe when the world really stinks, people always tell me the world's going to heck, or look at all the evil out there. I believe in balance. I'm one of these balance kind of guys. I believe for as much evil, there's good. Actually, I think there's twice as much good. It's just the good's quieter usually than the evil. It doesn't make the headlines. We don't. If a plane crashes, it's on the front page of the newspaper. We don't get a list of all the planes that landed. And I think we do have to keep in mind there is good out there. I think, Sue, the idea of hearing something bad and then saying, what am I thankful for? We could write our own list of what we, of what I'm not thankful for, but you could write a list of, and there is, I do believe, I'm a rabbi, but I do believe that there's as much good in the world as evil. Okay, Jason, you put that out. Good. And Susan, you just sent us a book recommendation, and we can put that out to everyone. I think I can cut and paste it. So here it goes. This is a book recommendation. Okay.
Incidentally, if you're looking for good news, just before I got on the chat, I looked. UPMC may have the vaccine. They're rushing it to clinical trials. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, let's see.
They're rushing it through clinical trials. It's still a ways away, but
Yeah.
UPMC thinks they found it. So for those of you with UPMC insurance, great. And for those of us with Highmark,
You're in trouble.
best of luck.
My son also, he works at works at University of Chicago, and it's funny, they said the same thing last week. They think they found something in China. They work through China, and I think there's a lot out there. We're going to hear it every day. Someone thinks they found something, and unfortunately you got clinical trials, but it's being pushed through. So there is reason to hope. If you want the medical side of reason to hope, there's a lot out there, and we're getting it every day from scientists and all over the world, and we're all one people now. And so it is coming. I mean, most of us believe that. Yeah, it's just hang in there. Okay, so okay, I'm sending that out. Okay, and now here you can put the chat to be all, so we can see what people are saying. That is true. I could actually do that. This isn't my high school class last night, which it's a bad idea to let everyone see what you're saying. I can change that. Fine, you are adults. I will change the group chat, everyone publicly and privately. Now, if you say something, just be careful. Everyone can read it. Not everyone, I know you're adults, but you might not know that everyone can read it. So
We're watching you. We have about 6 minutes left, 7 minutes left.
Yep.
So if anybody would like to hop in with another question.
Yeah. We end on time, but we will leave it on for people to talk.
That's right.
We will end the meeting and turn off the live stream, but you can talk as much as you want.
Some of us might have to run upstairs to put toddlers to bed, but the rest of you have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Jason, you know what I'm doing tonight? I have bedtime stories with Rabbi Alex, and you'll put your kid on, and I will read you bedtime stories tonight.
When can I tune in? Because I might be interested.
Amy said 7:30. I did 7, but I wasn't sure because it's been a long time since I had a little one. I always thought 7:30 was when we put them to bed. So at 8 they were bed, so we could watch television at 8. But I might change it to 7:30 next week. So we're at 7 o'clock tonight. Okay,
all right.
Go on, people. Okay.
So can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. So at Bethel, which Rabbi Alex is our esteemed rabbi, we've set up. Jason, I don't know if they do this in the church. It may be too large, but we're setting up a volunteers are calling other members of the congregation. We each get something like 20 names. I haven't gone through my whole list yet, but I'm getting near there, to just check up on them and see if they're okay and if they have any needs, if we, do they need this or do they need that? And if they do, we report it to the office or to the rabbis. And I was really surprised. I have to say that now I got some voicemails, and of course, people don't want to pick up their phone when they see it's me, but or they don't know who I am. But I was really quite surprised how many people responded as positively as they did. I mean, I thought people would, the ones who would answer would say, okay, goodbye. And they didn't. They wanted either, some of the people really wanted to talk. I mean, I had a hard time with a few people getting them off the phone, and others expressed gratitude for the phone call. And I thought that was really interesting. At another time in our lives, I don't know that I would probably be getting all voicemails. I mean, I've been on political campaigns, and all I get are voicemails when I do that. Nobody wants to get a call from somebody calling, why don't you vote for this person or that person? But with this, the people who answered the phone all expressed gratitude and thankfulness, even if they didn't need a thing that I was calling. I thought that was kind of interesting.
We at Westminster have a group, Bob Dilley pointed it out in the chat. We have a group called the Deacons, and the Deacons are principally responsible for the care of the congregation, looking in on each other. So last week they did a congregational care call. There's 1,800 members in our congregation, which is way too many. But they went through each and every one of them, including, this is why I was laughing when you were talking, including me. I got a care call from the Deacons, and they said, we just wanted to know if you knew what was going on at the church during the shutdown. I said, a little. I know a little about what's going on, but it was just sweet. I think I think you're 100% right that people just want that connection to each other. And so in ways that we might have been resistant to in the past. People are open to taking a phone call and chatting it up for a little while.
That's very good. And how many people do you, Jason, we have like four, I don't know if you do families or just do individuals. So we have like 430 families, 40, like 1,400 people. How many people are in Westminster?
It's 1,800 members.
Humans or families?
Humans.
Okay.
There is a family number. I forget what it is off the top of my head. It's about 700 or something in worship. So there's a lot of folks on the member rolls that don't regularly show up. Well, at the moment, no one shows up, but.
All right, very good. So sorry, someone signed in as me somewhere else on Zoom. So I'm trying to figure out who's on my account. And it's not my wife. She's saying it's probably her. Okay, so let's see. And we have like 2 minutes. Now, Jason, I don't know. We just kind of threw this together, but we probably can throw this together again. It's I know that we're trying to keep connected. So, watch your stuff for more stuff, because I know this was not the third Thursday of the month. Okay, I see. That is a thumbs up, not a hand raise. Very good. So you're good. Right. So it's this is and Jason, I thank you, and I know you're just one step. You're going to be a Zoom expert by next week too. Yeah.
Any second now.
Yeah, it's you millennials. Yeah. So at this point, I won't end the meeting. I will let you stay on so you can talk. But and then I'm going to try to find out who's on my account, because I might have to change my password. I think that's probably a good idea anyway. So all right. So I'm going to unmute all, which is probably a mistake, but I'm unmuting all. There we go. You're all unmuted. Okay, so just in case you're somewhere inappropriate, you're unmuted, and you can talk as long as you want, but I won't hear you. Anything? Okay, so we're gonna say goodbye, Jace.
Yeah, I gotta run. It was great to see you all. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. You can talk as much as you want.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job to you guys.
Everybody say goodbye to everybody.
Good and